Hello, and thank you for joining us in this Instructional Technology Workshop series. I'm Dr. Rick Baer, the Associate Dean of the Distance Learning Institute. I oversee all the instructional design, technology workshops, training for faculty and students, and I'm joined today by Dr. Beth Teagarden-Baer, who is the Assistant Director and oversees the first-year student orientation. We are going to take you on a journey. This Instructional Technology Workshop series is going to come to you in 4 parts. Today we're going to cover part 1, the interactive tools. Next week we're going to look at instructional tools. The following week will be assessment tools, and we will wrap up with a live webinar so you get to ask us questions, we get to share ideas. Today's workshop is going to look at interactive tools. Specifically, we're going to look at Flipgrid, Padlet, and Poll Everywhere. We're going to show you how to set these tools up in your classroom, and we're going to walk you through some examples for each tool so you get to see how they function and maybe get some ideas of how you might use them in your course. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Beth Baer, and she's going to take it from there.
The first tool we'd like to look at today is called Flipgrid. The Flipgrid option is a social learning platform. It allows the educator to ask questions and the students can then respond. There's this whole web of discussion that happens online. It works on any device, both on the web or as an app, and you can actually customize an assessment rubric and allow video feedback and downloads for your students. Let's take a look at this tool specifically. In this sample of Flipgrid, the instructor has actually talked to her students with a variety of topics here, and included here are what are the essential elements of a high-quality online course, and she gave them a tip to think outside the box. So below are the responses. So once the instructor has posted the question, then the students simply look for this large plus symbol in order to know that that's the place where they submit their response. So as each student responds to the question, then they can also respond to each other and again add an additional video in response. Not only can they respond to one another, but this gives the instructor the option to respond to them in video as well. All of these face-to-face communications helps to make the learning more personal in the online format. If you're interested in using Flipgrid in your course, it's very easy to find the information you might need at flipgrid.com. Once you're there, they have an educator sign up where you can go in and enter your information so that you can begin your own channel. They'll have a login specifically to you, but in addition they'll offer you amazing resources about how to make your learning more interactive for your students. Once you've established that information, then your students will have a flip code that you will give them, and they can come in and then begin entering the information that they would need to complete the assignment that you've given them, but also to interact with each other in a video way, which is very important for these students today. In order to set up an account, you may register, or you may also use your Google account to use that as an option to reach your students. For instance, this is an account that I created for students, and you can start with something as simple as saying hello. And in order to do that, they just hit the plus symbol. I would recommend as an instructor, you start the ball rolling by videoing first and saying hello. And that way that would encourage them to join in and to respond to perhaps questions that you asked or examples that you may have set. If you are concerned about closed captioning, you can also change the language of the closed captions. So depending on if you want the captions to read in another language, or even if you want it to be reflective of the language that the students use, make sure that you're checking your settings in order to do that. This tool we'd like to discuss is called Padlet. Padlet is also an interactive discussion tool where you can collaborate, collecting ideas and brainstorming with your students. It's also an easy device to use for whatever device your students may choose to use in your classroom. Again, it is free, just like Flipgrid, so that you can set up your account and allow your students to begin contributing immediately. Padlet does not show which work is attributed to your student, so require that your students initial their contributions when they submit it in order to get credit. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for you to know who actually made the post. Again, this is an online bulletin or discussion board. You can display information on any topic. Each time you can easily create an account and build that new board. You can add images, links, videos, whatever you think will be helpful in promoting that discussion. If you think of something or find something later, you can always return to add more. Let's take a look at Padlet specifically. In this example, the instructor has asked students what is instructional design and posted an overall discussion board. As you can see below, each student has then submitted their response to that particular question. And notice that each one signed their name so that the instructor as well as the other students would know who submitted that. Now below that submission, there is a chance for them to rate that response. If they feel that the student was outstanding in that response and very specific to the content, you can give them a higher rating, versus if they gave it generic, you might want to leave it lower or not respond to the rating at all. In this case, the instructor also responded back to say that they might have agreed with some of the concepts, or maybe there were pieces that were missing from that particular submission that they'd like for them to include. Students can also go in and agree or disagree with each other and understand how that discussion can take place in a meaningful way. Now, this of course is all in English, and we realize that you're going to want to make sure that language is accessible to all. So let's take a look at how you could actually change the language requirement in Padlet. Within Padlet, there is the opportunity to change the language that is seen. So once you're in your Padlet account, you want to go into Settings under the Basic Information. And there at the very bottom, it will talk about how to change the language here. So once you click on the language that's shown, then it will give you the option to choose from over 35 different languages in order to make sure that your students are accommodated in that particular response. And then once you're done with that, you'll click the Update button and the students will be able to respond in their preferred language. In order to sign up for your free Padlet account, you'll need to visit this https padlet.com, and within there they'll give you the opportunity to sign up. Not only can you sign up for the Padlet account, but you can also really personalize it. You can choose a style that's very bold or basic, whatever you prefer. In addition, it will allow you to give permission to other people who can write or can see the information that's posted. You can invite other people to collaborate. If you and another instructor are working together on certain lessons, you could also bring them into this particular Padlet. It will also allow you to post, as we mentioned before, photos or videos, web links, whatever you might want to include in your discussion, so that will make the information more meaningful for the students. In addition, there's a pretty great community of Padlet users, and they're going to talk down at the bottom of this page about some of the things that they've tried, and it's wonderful to reach out to them to get more information about what might work for your particular course. Again, they talk about whatever device you might like to use. They're all acceptable here through Padlet. The final tool we'd like to discuss today is Poll Everywhere. The interesting thing about this tool is that it is free and you can sign up just as we mentioned in the other two, but in this tool you can also actually allow it to be part of your PowerPoint menu, and that is what I would encourage you to do. As you create your PowerPoints, it would give you the opportunity to interact with your students. Some of the features of Poll Everywhere include the fact that not only can you just use it within the PowerPoint presentation, but it provides some immediate feedback on the content you're presenting as well as the comprehension of your students. They can express their opinions, interact with each other, and also give you some pretty interesting feedback through your topics as you decide whether or not they have actually demonstrated mastery and understand your topic. So within Poll Everywhere, you're actually going to use this in a synchronous environment because it's used when you're actually presenting live to your students. So it is not something that could be posted and students could reply at their convenience. It would be something that would be more available when you're presenting in a live session with your students. Let's take a look. To sign up for Poll Everywhere, you go to polleverywhere.com, and when you're there, they will give you the option of signing in through your Google account or your school account, whichever you prefer. But in addition to that, one of my favorite features is they have educator tips, and within that they might talk to you about how to create a fun and engaging webinar, or how to foster an authentic connection, or how to do fun and fresh icebreakers for your students. These are all helpful tips that come from other educators as well. So once you've signed up for this account, you want to set up what they call a poll. And in this poll, you're actually going to be checking to see the feedback from your students or from your audience. So in this case, we actually already set up a poll today that asks, what do you like most about teaching? So once we set up this particular response, we had a choice as to which format it would be in. So it will appear in your slide like this. And for instance, it will give the actual web address if your students are on a computer, but it will also give a cell phone number for them to text, so they can text their responses, which many of them prefer. For you, it gives you the option of actually activating it so that when you're ready, it's open. And when you're done using that particular poll, you can lock it. And that way no one else can respond once you've decided that the poll time is finished. But showing the responses is actually really fun for the participants because they get to see their responses as well as the responses of others, and you can be creative in how that particular response is presented. So in this case, we chose a word cloud, and we're going to actually demonstrate what that would look like once the students would begin to submit their responses to this particular poll. As you can see, as the students submit their responses, it appears on the screen. In this case, we chose a word cloud, which might jumble some responses that are more than one word, but it's still exciting to see their responses as they post it. And when you feel that you've got enough responses, then you can stop it at any time and lock it. You can save these responses if you want to share this as something that would be meaningful to remember back on this activity when you were teaching in particular. There's a wide variety of polls that are available to you. In order to see all of your options, you would need to click on Create to look at new polls. Here you can see that you can use multiple choice questions, the word cloud, which we demonstrated earlier. You could just do regular question and answer opportunities, an image that you might want them to click on or perhaps find a specific place on that image. You could survey your students, ask open-ended questions, and even have competitions if you want to see who's really paying attention. In addition to that, there are also things like icebreakers. You can do emotional scales just to see how students are doing that day or how they're doing at the end of your particular service of or message that you're presenting in there. In addition to that, you could ask them to rank things or brainstorm ideas. You could even assign teams. So within this activity, you have a wide variety of options. And by creating that, you would engage your students in whatever lesson you might be presenting that day. In order to make sure that the language setting is correct in your polls, you'll need to go under the actual setting for Poll Everywhere. If you're unsure of how to find that, if you do a quick search, it should bring it right up. And in fact, they'll give you a whole list of options that you might need support for. So here they talk about how to change the language for a poll, and you would actually have the opportunity to use any of these languages listed here. Under Settings, where the little gear is, you would go to My Settings, and underneath there they would have something that says Poll Settings. Under the poll settings, they'll ask you what language should the poll instructions be in. You can use the drop-down arrow to change the language that you prefer for your polls.
So there you go. 3 very simple to set up and easy tools that can change the pace, change the interaction, make your students see something in a different way that will help them be a little more excited about the course you're doing. As in any kind of instruction, you don't want to overdo any of these tools, because if the students do it again and again and again, they start to get bored with these tools. So, your teachers, your interaction skills and what the students expect and what they enjoy. So we invite you to use these. And to wrap up presentation 1 of this series, we have an assignment for you. In the module, there is a discussion question that will take you to the discussion board. And what we would like you to do is to choose one of these interactive tools and create an example of how you would use it in your course. And when you're done, post it. You can do a screenshot or you can post a link depending on what you choose to do in the discussion board so you can share it with the other instructors at your university. And that way you can see ideas and maybe someone did something that you'll think is very exciting and you're going to want to make an example of as well. So post your result in the discussion board for this module and we'll see you next week.